If you, we're gonna do wall yoga for the start of tonight. So you can take your mat, I like to put it lengthwise so that you can lay down on your mat. And then you're gonna grab pillows or bolsters. So I have bolsters, but you can definitely use pillows. And for the first part of this, you'll take the bolster close. So take it alongside your mat so it's available for you. And then set yourself up. So to come down onto your back can sometimes be a little bit tricky with the wall. So if you sit parallel to the wall and then lower yourself down, you can kind of use the space along the wall just to lift up your hips and kind of scoop yourself so you now are lying on your mat. Okay. So I'll give you a moment just to get situated there. Beautiful. Once you have made your way down onto your mat, take your hips as close as you can into the wall. Ideally, the back of your legs will land against the wall. And then this is an option. I really like the supported variation of this pose. If you want to take it, what you'll do is you'll take your feet, press them into the wall with your knees bent, which lifts up your hips. And then you can take your pillows or your bolster underneath your lower back so that your hips actually land on it. Okay. And then you can always scoot yourself, just lifting up one hip at a time, kind of nudging yourself forward. And we're just going to simply start with legs up the wall. So backs of your heels will land against the wall. Your big toes can be together or slightly apart. If you don't like the sensation of your bolster underneath your lower back, you're always welcome to come out of this pose the same way you came in and just simply take legs up the wall. And then allow your hands to land over top of your belly or down beside you or even overhead. So just wherever is comfortable. And just simply start to find the sound of your breath.
Yeah, but she's got a bolster underneath her hips.
Yeah, I have one.
So within this practice, it can be really challenging to avoid telling ourselves those stories that we get lost in. That we often find ourselves in our thoughts rather than in the present moment. And what's really beautiful about this practice is that even though there are lots of chances to fall out of alignment, there are also a lot of chances to reset. And this reset is really just stepping into the truthfulness of what is within this moment. And truthfulness is our second yama, or ethical practice of living a yogic lifestyle. And we refer to this as Satya. Sincerity, integrity, and truth. The present moment is simple. It's just simply you and your breath and the sensations of your body. But when we start to travel to past experiences, there's always a bias that comes with our view. And when we start to anticipate the future, an unknown quality, that there's also a lack of truth to what will happen or what could. But right here, right now, if you stay in this present moment, you're just simply sitting in truth. Can you notice the simplicity of what this moment is offering you? The space to breathe, to tune in to your inner environment, and maybe even to just notice your thoughts that are sifting through your mind. Attachment takes us away from truthfulness. So instead of attaching, just observe. Observe a thought coming in and just as smoothly going back out. Notice if any of these thoughts start to pull you into a narrative where they pile onto one another, and suddenly you're far from the present moment. Notice if there's validity to these thoughts, or are they simply a story of perception? A story based on the lens of which we view this world and our role in it. Can you let go of those thoughts and just come back to the steady truth of breath in and breath out? Breath in and breath out. Notice the sensations in your legs, maybe feeling a little tingly, maybe feeling like sensation is running down from the tops of your feet towards your hips. Can you feel a sensation of heaviness in the backs of your hips, shoulder blades, and back of your head? You feel the rise and fall of your breath. Notice how simple it is to just simply be here. When this practice feels complicated or far from simple, check in if you're still in the present moment, because chances are you're not. And to bring yourself back, just simply take a few deep breaths and bring your awareness within. Take this next little bit of movement really, really slowly. Start to bend your knees and towards your chest. You might feel some sensation through the legs. You can allow your hips to lift up slightly. And if it feels okay, you're welcome to rock side to side, hands wrapping your shins or your hamstrings. And then once again, place your feet onto the wall. If you have a block or bolster or pillows underneath, press into the wall to lift your hips and then slide that prop out and slowly lower down onto your spine again. If you're far away from the wall, you can just gently walk yourself a little bit closer in. And then with your knees still bent, start to take your knees out to the side so the soles of your feet come together into a butterfly shape. Now this also will be a pose where blocks or pillows or bolsters will be really comfortable. So you can take whatever is available to you and just start to nuzzle it in underneath your hip creases, or you can take it underneath your upper thighs. You may need to add in more or take out less depending on the sensation that you are looking to experience. And coming into a supported supine butterfly. Notice how the sensation has shifted from the back of the legs now to the inner thighs. And see if you can experience this body sensation without a story. Almost like you're observing it from an outside perspective. Letting go of the attachment of the story of how something is happening to you. And instead finding an objective stance of just noticing, of just watching, and even of just listening to the thoughts that are moving through this moment. If at any time this feels like too much, you can always use your hands and bring your knees back in towards your chest and straighten your legs up the wall again. Know that you can add in more props, stacking more pillows if you want more support, or you can move your support out more towards the edges of your knees for less. And throughout this pose, allow yourself to just be an observer. And anytime you notice you've gotten distracted or attached, just reset with 3 big breaths. As humans, we have a tendency to linger in the past and to anticipate the future. But typically we're drawn to one or the other based on our current circumstances. Just become aware if you notice that your vision is more forward, anticipating future events, to-do lists, anxiousness about what's ahead or what this day or week or year might hold. For others, you might linger on what's happened today or even this week or this year, on past encounters and situations. You may find your mind just weaving through these moments. And know that this isn't bad. It's not wrong or right. It's just simply a distraction. A distraction away from what is right here in this moment. A distraction away from simplicity. Know that you deserve time to step out of the busyness of thought and to just simply be. Gently bring your hands to the outer edges of your knees and start to bring your knees back through center. And release your props out from either side. And then just slowly you can start to shuffle yourself away from the wall, enough that you have room to roll yourself over to your right hand side and just land in a fetal position. Left side of your body resting over top of the right. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Feel your left side body rise up. And then exhale out through your mouth. Let that go. Take 2 more breaths in this in-between space. Just settle your spine to neutral. And to give you space to let go of where you were, so you can arrive at where you are right now. If you need longer here, you're always welcome to take it. Otherwise, use your left hand and start to press yourself up. And then facing away from the wall, bring yourself onto your hands and knees. And as I like to do with every yin practice, is just to move through the spine a little bit. So you can take your hips side to side. You can curl and you can round. Think of this as the rinsing of your body and the unsticking of vertebra. You can send your hips back to your heels or ahead. I really love props for this next pose. And so if you do have pillows or a bolster, you're more than welcome to use them. Separate your knees wide. Take your big toes together to touch. And then sit your hips back towards your heels for child's pose. Now, those of you using props, you can start to line up pillows lengthwise down your mat in the shape of a bolster, or you can stack them under your belly and chest and just drape yourself over top. So the bolster is actually holding you up, and you have more of a rounded spine with these pillows or props. But if you prefer, you don't have to use the props. You can always just lengthen your hands forward and rest your forehead onto your mat. If you are using props, you can allow one cheek or the other to gently land down. And then check in with your physical body. And if you're holding tension in your shoulders, allow them to melt away from your ears, dropping down your spine. Allow your hips to sink back towards your heels. Allow your joints to soften. The connection of tissue and bone to release some tension. As you gently start to fold your body into the shape. As you settle in, notice the sensations without having to attach or grip or tell yourself a story. Just become aware and breathe. Our mind is an incredibly precise instrument, and it's an incredible machine. But sometimes it likes to jump to conclusions. And when we receive that one input from our body or one sensation that is slightly uncomfortable, our minds sometimes want to fix right away. And so in all of our discomfort, we fidget, or we move, or we shift. And the yin practice is really a practice of sitting with that discomfort, of recognizing discomfort is real and it's meant to be. You're meant to be playing with that balance of your comfort zone within this practice. And sometimes when we just sit with the sensation for 3 or 5 or even 8 breaths, the sensation starts to fade. The initial heat or fire starts to burn a little less, right? It starts to talk a little less loud. And so truthfulness often asks us to just wait, to sit with something and really feel into it. You'll always know if you need to move or need to shift, if it's painful or feels like too much, or you can't stop distracting yourself. And then you just shift and come back to this place where you're able to observe. You're able to just sit with the sensation without having to create a story. Knowing that if you really need something, you'll know. This is such a beautiful lesson that we can take off the mat. To recognize in times of discomfort, when we say that we need something, our body triggers that anxious or sick or fearful sensation or feeling. And our mind immediately jumps to, what do I need? Sometimes it's a specific food, or sometimes we need to move or run, or we need to say something back. And oftentimes it's very reactive and it doesn't anchor within our truth. Often just sitting with a sensation is noticing that you're bored, or that you're anxious or worried. And when we start to come down to why it is that we immediately feel like we need to do something, we can actually take it back to, what do we truly need in this moment? Is it to take a couple of deep breaths? Is it to get motivated and do something for our body or for our mind? Because often the reaction doesn't actually solve the discomfort, it just masks it. And so even here in the practice, when we've gone too deep, moving constantly doesn't fix that we're too deep in a pose to relax. But shifting the attention to less depth and then settling in will often give us the space to just stay. The last couple of breaths here, notice if there's anything you just need to let go of so that you can come into this place of truth and observing rather than reacting. Take your time to come out of your child's pose. Slowly peel your hips away from your heels. Walk your hands underneath your shoulders. Now, if you had a bolster or pillows underneath, you can just press them off to the side. If you need movement in this transition, as always, you're welcome. And then you can simply, when you're ready, take your feet out to either side and bring your feet out in front of you. Walk your feet wide, walking your hands back, and then just gently drop your knees to the left and to the right. Walk your hands back in towards your body so that your shoulders are over your hips, and then start to extend your legs out so that your heels are coming out wide for dragonfly. Now, if you notice that your knees bend up in this shape, grab your pillows and take them underneath your knees so that you can actually relax into your hip creases and quads instead of holding up. And then if you have extra props, you can stack blocks for your forehead to land on, or you can always use your bolster to fold over top of, or even bolster for your head to land on. You're just going to slowly start to hinge at the hips and fold forward to create that sensation of lengthening into your inner thighs. If you don't have props available, but you want to support your head, you can always bend your elbows onto even just one prop and tuck your chin into your chest or hold your forehead. Make sure that your toes point up towards the ceiling. and that they're not falling in or out, so that your knee and hip and foot alignment is all in one. And then really important with this pose is check in with your depth, especially when you first land in this shape. Have you truly chosen a depth that serves you? Or have you allowed your ego to sneak in and gone to a place that might be too deep to hold? With folds, gravity will naturally bring you down. And so where you start the fold is not where you'll end it. And so I always like to say, start somewhere at 70 or 80% of where you can go, and allow your body to naturally unwind into its depth. Notice if you're clenching your jaw, if you're gripping with the muscles of your face. You just soften, and remember, you don't need your face to hold you here. That you're allowed to be soft and relaxed despite some of the discomfort. And learning to sit in this discomfort. We learn that it's okay to just be where we are without always needing to react. That it's okay to feel what you feel without having to write a narrative or story or put blame anywhere. To just be in the present moment. Right now, in this stillness and silence, you are essentially holding space to hear your inner thought process, to listen to your body. Holding space is one of the most challenging practices in yoga because it asks us to sit with ourselves without any masks, without any makeup or band-aids, and to just hold space as we are in our full truth. And that's often uncomfortable. But the more that we practice holding space for ourselves without having to Photoshop the situation or who we are in that moment, it truly becomes an act of self-love. To recognize that maybe your thoughts aren't in the best place today. And then to respond that it's okay. That whatever you're feeling, it's okay. And that perhaps there's a deeper truth beyond that. That when you take the time to listen and unwind the narrative, you may even be given the gift to let go of the story or even the feeling, the frustration, the fear. And know that you are okay. And you are more okay than you think you are. Gently make your way back up, away from the earth. One at a time, scoop up your knees to slide your heels in, using your hands. And then once again, lean back and drop your knees side to side, but focus more on that internal rotation of the leg that's dropping through center. You should feel like all the tightness or lengthening or sensation that you were just in is already starting to move and shift. It's that reminder when we tell ourselves we're going to be here forever, I can't do this, that things will always shift. And you just have to hold time to let them pass. Slowly start to make your way over onto your left hip. So your feet scoop out to the right. And for deer pose, start to scoop your right knee back behind you. Now your right shin might be parallel to the edge of your mat, but your knee might be more in or it might be more back. If you have some discomfort with the knees, you can always take a pillow underneath your front or even your back knee so that, especially if it's on a hard surface, a pillow will be nice underneath it. For just a moment, play with taking your back hip towards the ground, and it should go pretty tight into your hip. Okay? It might feel even deeper than some sensations, and this is your internal rotation. So like you're taking both of your sits bones onto the earth. We just went through a lot of external rotation, so this is just a moment to tap into the internal, to balance out all of that opening, and just find an in-between space. Stay upright for 3 more breaths. And then slowly start to hinge your way forward. Now allow your back hip to lift off of the earth and your weight comes fully onto your front hip. So deer is kind of a modification of pigeon, but it gives you that internal rotation of the back hip. So you're welcome to stay here. If deer doesn't feel okay for you, you can always press into your hands, pick up your hips and move towards pigeon, straightening out your back leg. So either or, but you're looking for that opening into your front hip and maybe a slight sensation into the back hip as well. And just bring your attention inwards into your physical body. And without having to label or judge the sensation, can you just make space to listen? To soften into this moment. To trust that there is still room to relax even here. Truthfulness is a really challenging yama because it asks us to step outside of our attachment to ego. How often, when you're having a bad day, does it actually center around 5 or 10 or 20 minutes of not a good experience? But we allow that to become our day. And we tell ourselves a story that it's just one of those days. We lose the truthfulness that there's still so much joy outside of those 5 or 10 minutes. That there are still people who love us, and we're healthy, and we're alive, and we're breathing. That there are people that we love and things we're passionate about. That's the truth. But we get caught up in our stories sometimes. And yin is that beautiful practice to just notice what are the stories or the movies that are playing on the cinema of your consciousness. What are the background stories that are having an impact day to day? And by simply becoming aware of them, we can start to shift the perspective away from attachment and narratives and more towards truth. If you have hinged or folded forward, start to make your way back up. Use your hand to help guide your back knee around and in front. If you need to windshield wiper between sides, you're welcome to. Otherwise, just roll to the opposite hip in front and scoop your other knee back. We're going to spend a couple of breaths like we did on the first side in that upright shape. Your back hip might be lifted off the ground, but allow it to become heavy. So you start to feel that sensation deep into your back hip. The sensation will feel less about the muscles and will feel quite deep in the joint. And wherever you are, can you just pause, close down your eyes, and breathe through this sensation, knowing that if you need to shift out of some of the depth, you're always welcome to. But otherwise, knowing that you're also free to just stay for 3 more breaths. Once you've taken your 3rd exhale, you can once again start to hinge and fold forward over top of your front shin. Always optional to play with half pigeon rather than deer. And come to a place of physical sensation that you have the room to be present. When we're overwhelmed with what's happening in the external environment, it's really hard to connect internally. It's hard to hear your inner voice when everything outside of us is shouting. And so even though this practice, we physically slow down, we've taken this space for ourselves, Make sure that the pose itself isn't creating distraction or noise that takes you out of this connection. Allow yourself to be in a space where you have access to this truth. Truthfulness comes down to our thoughts. And I believe it's an ancient Chinese proverb that tells us the link between our present experience and our thoughts. Be careful what you think, for your thoughts become words. Be careful of your words, for your words become actions. Be careful of your actions, for your actions become habits. Be careful of your habits, because your habits become your character. And become careful of your character, because your character becomes your destiny. And so it all comes down to our thoughts. What we think creates our world. And how we choose to view things often is how they'll appear. And so to come from a place of integrity and truth with our thoughts creates a world that is open and has space for who we really are, rather than feeling like we have to fight against this world. Gently start to bring yourself out of this side, walking your hands back up and towards your body. Scoop your back knee around and in front. And then slowly make your way down onto your back, making sure that you have bolsters available for your last couple of poses, which will be twists. You don't have to use the bolsters, but know that they're available. So once you've landed onto your back, it might feel nice to just take a big stretch and lengthen out the front body, reaching from fingertips to toes. And then whenever you're ready, you can start to plant your feet. I'll leave this variation of twist up to each of you. So whether you want the traditional variation that I am guiding you through, or if there's a specific variation you know you need, you're welcome to take that. Make sure that starting the twist, pick your hips up and over to the left side of your mat. And then you can bring your knees into your chest and slowly just allow your knees to naturally fall over to the right. Now, if there are gaps between your body, like between your knees, just take a block or a pillow between them. If there are gaps between your knees and the ground, you can always take a prop underneath your bottom knee. Most important with twists is just to make sure both shoulder blades remain rooted to your mat so that the twist is happening in your thoracic spine rather than twisting into the lumbar. Notice if there's anything that you need to shift or change within this pose so that you can just settle right in. I've been thinking a lot about this particular yama, asteya of truthfulness, especially right now, because there's so much disinformation out there. And there's so many opposing views and what is right and what is wrong. There's condescension and there's judgment. And there's a lot of fear about taking the wrong step. And essentially, we're all living in a world of these other people's truths. And then when other people don't ascribe to the same truths as us, there's a fear or a judgment that we place on them. And I believe that it's really beautiful for us to just sit with what is true for me in this moment. Right now, I am healthy. I am able to practice yoga. I have friends and family that I can lean on for support. Right now, I have a roof over my head and food in my fridge. Right now, I have full breath and a beating heart. Right now, I am doing the best that I can with what I have. And right now, that's enough. There's a lot of unknowns. There are a lot of situations that don't have answers. But there is still the truth of this present moment. And right now, you are okay. We might not know what fall and winter look like. We might not know if we did everything right, if we made the right choices in the past, or where we are now. But all of that doesn't matter because there's no truth to it. The truth is you are here and you are okay. Take a deep breath in. Just let that all go. Gently start to lift your knees back up through center. Shift your hips into the middle of your mat and release out any props or blocks. Whenever you're ready, hips shift over to the right and knees will make their way to the left, gently landing into your twist on the other side. If you need movement in between sides, know that this is always available. You come into this pose when you're ready. There's so much humility and grace in recognizing that we don't know everything. And we don't have all the answers. But in also trusting that there is room for you even in those most uncomfortable moments. And it's easy to rattle off the fear or anxious scenarios of how everything could fall apart. But the truth is, it could also fall together. The truth is that we'll never really know whether a choice could have changed the path of our lives. And we'll never really know if we're making the right or the wrong ones. And so we just need to trust. Trust what you feel deep down inside, past the fear, the insecurity, the disappointment. And trust that even in the most uncomfortable of moments, life is okay. And in finding that it is okay, you find space for yourself to breathe again. To just take breath after breath and slowly work through whatever you are dealing with. Take 3 more breaths wherever you are. And slowly start to guide your knees back up through center. And take any final movements that you're craving before dropping down into Shavasana. There's absolutely no rush to land there. If you feel like you cannot move on from whatever you are going through at this moment, just remember this. 6 months ago, or 12 months ago, or 2 years ago, you thought the very same thing. You were in a position that threatened all that was hopeful within you. You did not think that you would survive. But 6 months ago, or 12 months ago, or 2 years ago, you did. You did. You woke up in the morning. You pushed through the mess. You dug yourself out of the hurt and you held on to whatever light that you found within yourself, whatever light you found within your days. And you pressed it into yourself whenever you could, reminding yourself that goodness still existed. That softness was still there. 6 months ago, or 12 months ago, or 2 years ago, you fought your way out of the dark. You have the strength to save yourself. You always have. And please don't forget that. You're more okay than you think. I'll leave you here for a moment in silence on my end. And I'll bring you out of Shavasana so we can close off together. Now, if you need to stay as you are and you're not quite ready to come out of that shape, just simply stay lying down. That's totally okay. You're ready to start to move into your body and start to take some movements, maybe even a giant stretch overhead, or curling your knees in towards your body. If you are coming out of Shavasana, take the next minute or so to bring yourself to seated so that there's no rush to get there. And you can just simply meet with your hands at heart center. And laying your chin towards your chest. And find what's true in this moment for you. Something that deep down at its core is absolutely true. And maybe something that can be a reminder in moving forward when everything is falling apart, there's still this ultimate truth. Thank you for joining me tonight, and truly so much love and so much gratitude from the bottom of my heart. Namaste. If you do want to join in the journaling section of this, you're welcome to just kind of slowly wake up and grab your journal now. And without finding too many distractions, so that you're still kind of in that same headspace of what we spoke about in this practice. A couple of journaling prompts or thoughts around truthfulness is, I think, really just noticing any examples or any times of when you've said something, but you've said something to someone, but you said something else that's different to someone else, or you said something, but you did something else, or you did something while thinking, I shouldn't really be doing this, or you did something, but then you lied about it, or your memory even of what happened or what was said is different than somebody else's. So that's one way to look at truthfulness of, are we living in what we know to be true? When we say we're going to do something, do we do it? If we say something to someone, do we hold that to be a truth, to be really sacred? Or, you know, do you tend to be inconsistent with your thoughts or feelings or words or actions? So really it comes down to integrity of what we say and what we do really promotes who we are. And it comes from a place of self-love, really, that when we add in judgment, that it definitely changes how we show up in this world. Thank you, Jess, for joining. And so, yeah, it's just checking in with like, where maybe can we start to be more truthful, even if it's just in how we speak to ourselves. And I think a big portion of that, with everything going on, has been, is everything happening to me, or am I a part of it? And how can I show it better? That this world isn't happening to me and making things hard, that the way that I'm perceiving it makes things really hard. And so can I let go of that false attitude that really brings you into a hole or a bit of a spiral? So hopefully those are some decent things to think about or to consider. Just anywhere that you feel that kind of jarring sensation between consistency of actions, words, thoughts. Yeah. So I'll give you a couple of moments just to write that down, and then, yeah, hopefully that gives you something that as you go through your day, anytime you notice a story or a narrative coming up, you can just put pause on the narrative for a moment. And that truth can be, I am enough, or I am okay, I'm safe. So whenever we start to kind of go to that avalanche of emotion or thoughts, or really overthinking or worrying, that we can just pause and come back to that ultimate truth. So with this, I'll just close off really, really quickly. One of my favorites and one of the ones that I go back to whenever I'm facing self-defeating thoughts or I don't feel enough is I come back to the truth that I am right and that I shine a light for this world. And it might not be for everyone. And in, say, this yoga challenge or this, it might not resonate with everyone. But for someone, I will shine a light for them to see something differently, or it will change a direction or a path or a choice. And so even in that belief that I'm not enough, I might not be enough for everyone. And that's okay because I'm still bright. So that ultimate truth allows me to work through the other kind of beliefs I have that maybe aren't true, but I still believe them. And so I hope that this kind of gives you an idea of like, who are you? Who at your core, I am this, will help you get through those moments. I'm strong, I am safe, I am trustworthy, I'm loyal, I am love, I am faith, I am unraveling, whatever that word is, I find really, really helpful. So something to consider moving forward. But thank you for joining me tonight. And I hope that this was helpful just in kind of getting a little closer to self.